Did you know the person most likely to is actually your partner? Now imagine what happens when you win the lottery. You become a walking jackpot, and your chances of being murdered by your spouse in your sleep shoot up. That's exactly what happened to this woman who was brutally murdered by her own husband after winning the lottery. So what pushed him over the edge? Let's find out. Number 7. The paranoid partner. Emma Brown had just won £5.5 million in the lottery, which is about $7.4 million US. It was great news, just not for her boyfriend, Stephen Gibbs. For him, it quickly became a nightmare that he created himself. They had been together for over a decade. That's 12 years of sharing bills, birthdays, and apparently bottled up resentment. But after the win, something changed in their relationship. Emma started buying property, talking about traveling. Basically, she started enjoying her independence. And Stephen lost his mind seeing her like this. He got paranoid and convinced that she was cheating. In fact, he got so obsessed, he even put a tracker on her car. Then came the final straw. Emma told him it was over. She was done with the accusations, the drinking, and the possessiveness. She had seen the relationship crumbling and decided to walk away. But Stephen was not about to let that happen. On January 30th, 2021, Emma came home to find Stephen drunk in their fancy £700,000 house in Barry, Wales. Instead of letting her talk, he accused her of having an affair with an old school friend. And then he snapped. He grabbed her by the throat and slammed her into a wall. After that, he put her in a headlock. She tried to run. He chased her, and then he went into the kitchen and grabbed a large knife. What happened next is horrifying. He her 7 times in the face. She thought she was going to die. She even asked him to tell her mother she loved her. That's how brutal it got. She was left on the floor calling for help. A neighbor heard her and called emergency services. When police found Stephen, he was sitting in his Mercedes like nothing had happened, with the blood-covered knife on the passenger seat. Emma barely survived this incident. She lost 75% of her vision in her right eye, has nerve damage, and cannot fully lift her right arm anymore. She said she felt completely numb to everything after the attack. She also said she used to be the life of the party. Now she cannot even be around crowds. She trusted him for 12 years and he tried to kill her over money. The crazy part is that Stephen had done this before. Years earlier, he a different partner's 11-year-old son. So yeah, this was not some one-off. This was who he was all along. And Emma paid the price for not seeing it sooner. Well, Emma was nearly killed by the man she loved for 12 years. The next lottery winner on our list didn't face betrayal from a current partner, but just about everyone else in her life. Number 6. The Crazy Ex. This is Tonda Dickerson's story, who was just trying to survive back in 1999. She was a single mom working long shifts at a Waffle House in Alabama, who was barely making it through the week. Life had been tough, especially after leaving an abusive marriage, but she kept going. Then, one day, a customer handed her a lottery ticket as a tip. It was a Florida scratch-off ticket. Most people would have tossed it in a drawer and forgotten about it. But Tonda actually checked it, and she found out that she had won $10 million. The waitress became a millionaire overnight. She didn't take the lump sum like most people do. Instead, she went for 30 annual payments of $375,000. It was definitely a smart decision. That gave her some structure and a fighting chance at keeping the money instead of blowing it all at once. She quit her job. You would too. But almost instantly, she fell into a chaotic phase of her life. First came her coworkers. 4 other waitresses from the same Waffle House said they had a deal that if any of them ever won from a customer's ticket, they would split it 5 ways. Tonda said that there was no such deal. They sued her anyway. They even brought in some lady to say she heard Tonda agree to it at work. Tonda swore that she was a fake customer planted just for court. The case was a whole mess. The first court sided with the co-workers. But later, a higher court threw it out, saying verbal lottery splitting deals counted as gambling, which is not enforceable in Alabama. So Tonda kept her money. You would think that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. The man who gave her the ticket sued her too. He claimed she promised to buy him a new truck if she won. The court shut down that claim as well. Because as everyone knows, gifting a lottery ticket does not give you a legal cut. But then something worse happened. Her ex-husband found out she won. He didn't call or ask for money. He showed up and kidnapped her, forced her to drive out to some remote road in Alabama, saying he was going to kill her. She was terrified at that point. But when he got distracted, Tonda used her brain to do something clever to save her life. She pulled a gun and shot him in the chest. He survived the though, so she drove him to the hospital herself. He was arrested and got time in prison. And yes, she was the one who made sure he got medical help. That's who Tonda is. Despite everything she faced in her life, she didn't crash. Tonda went back to work. Now she deals cards at a casino and still gets that yearly lottery check. She's living a quiet life with no big spending. She got lucky with the money, but surviving a attempt was all her. Number 5. The Estranged Brother. This is William Post, who won $16.2 million and thought all of his problems would go away, but he was wrong. If anything, hitting the jackpot just added gasoline to the fire that was already his life. Let's start at the beginning. Bud grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania. His mom when he was 8, and his dad shipped him off to an orphanage. He had a rough start, to say the least. As an adult, he bounced between odd jobs, including cooking, painting, and truck driving. And when he won the lottery in 1988, he had exactly $2.46 in his bank account. And the ticket that changed his life was not even bought by him directly. He gave $40 to his landlady/girlfriend, Ann Karpik, to buy some tickets. One of those won. That tiny moment started a chain of disasters that would haunt him for the rest of his life. 2 weeks into his winnings, Bud had already blown $300,000. He set up his siblings in random businesses, bought a plane, and grabbed a mansion. Within 3 months, he was $500,000 in debt, and then it got worse. His brother tried to hire a hitman to kill him and his wife, just so he could inherit the money. That's the level of madness Bud's life had reached. The plot failed and his brother got arrested, but the damage was done. The couple got paranoid. Anne, who technically bought the winning ticket, sued Bud for a third of the money. The court sided with her. Bud refused to pay, so the judge froze his lottery payments. As if that wasn't enough, Bud got in trouble for at a debt collector and even at his own wife's car. He eventually served jail time and ended up living off $450 a month and food stamps. By the time he died in 2006, Bud was broke, alone, and done with life. He once said, "I was much happier when I was broke." And looking at how it all played out, maybe he was right. Well, Bud Post lost everything to bad choices and a backstabbing brother. This next lottery story is far worse, because it ends in something no money could ever fix. Number 4. Tiffany Hill was a 31-year-old mom of 4. In November 2020, she scratched off a $2 million California lottery ticket and won the jackpot. You would think that kind of money could finally give her and her kids some peace. Instead, it ended the little peace they had in their lives. After winning, she moved her family to Oklahoma. Not long after, she married John Donato, which was a decision she regretted not long after. Her family said she was in an abusive relationship and wanted to leave. They even said she tried reaching out for help. Then, in July 2021, police found Tiffany, her 23-month-old daughter Leanne, and her husband all in the head at their home. Leanne was still alive when help arrived, but she didn't make it. Tiffany and John were already gone. Authorities ruled it a homicide. John had his wife and daughter, then himself. And yes, this happened just 9 months after she became a millionaire. Her attorney later said that the lottery win caused tension between the couple. Maybe it was jealousy, maybe it was control, or maybe it was both. We will never really know what pushed him to that point, but the signs were there, and sadly, so was the danger. The worst part is that 3 of Tiffany's other kids were in the house during the shooting. Thankfully, they were unharmed, physically at least. The money Tiffany left behind was placed in a trust for her surviving children. Her family also started a GoFundMe to help with funeral costs. She wanted a better life for her kids. She really did. But her story shows that sometimes, even winning the lottery cannot save you from the person sleeping beside you. Now, brace yourself for the next story, because this time, the millionaire was the one who pulled the trigger. Number 3. The Toxic Love. Some lottery winners blow it all on cars, boats, and bad investments. But Michael Todd Hill threw away everything for something even worse: jealousy and violence. Back in 2017, Michael was a 54-year-old man living in North Carolina. That year, he won $10 million through a scratch-off ticket. He chose the lump sum and walked away with over $4.1 million after taxes. That kind of money should have changed his life in a good way. But for Michael, it became a ticking time bomb. He went from working at a nuclear power plant to living like a millionaire. Paid off some bills, helped his wife's business, at least that's what he told the Lottery Commission. But just a few years later, in the summer of 2020, he made headlines again, not for what he bought, but for who he Turns out, his girlfriend, Kiona Graham, who was only 23. They had been dating for over a year. One day, they checked into a hotel near Wilmington. That's where it all went down. Kiona was later found dead in that room. She was in the back of the head. The only other person in the room was Michael. Surveillance showed no one else entering or leaving. And when police brought him in, he confessed and said he had shot her because she was texting other men while they were at the hotel. No one knows what else was going on in their relationship, but jealousy like that doesn't come from nowhere. He was holding so much rage in him. Michael was charged and found guilty of first-degree murder. The judge gave him life in prison with no chance of parole, plus extra time for having a gun as a felon. He won the lottery, but now he will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Number 2. The mistress and her boyfriend. Now let's talk about Jeffrey Dampier, a man who had the worst luck in relationships. Back in 1996, Jeffrey won $20 million in the Illinois lottery. He took the lump sum and walked away with about $11 million after taxes. Jeffrey was generous, so instead of hoarding the money, he spread it around. He helped out his family, bought them gifts, and set people up with businesses. He even moved to Florida and started a gourmet popcorn company with his new wife. But then he made a mistake. At some point, Jeffrey started an affair with his wife's sister, Victoria Jackson. She was 18 when the affair began. He spoiled her with money, gifts, and trips. But what he didn't know was that Victoria had a secret. Turns out, Victoria had a boyfriend named Nathaniel, and the two of them had a twisted, greedy plan. One night in 2005, Victoria lured Jeffrey into a van. She said she needed help with something. Instead, she and Nathaniel tied him up with shoelaces, drove him around, and demanded money. They even made him call his wife, pretending everything was fine. When Jeffrey refused to hand over more cash, Nathaniel handed Victoria a gun and told her to do it. And she did. She Jeffrey in the back of the head and left him in the van. Died at 39. All that money, all that kindness was gone just like that. It was taken by someone he trusted, someone he thought loved him. Victoria and Nathaniel were both arrested and charged with kidnapping and murder. They are now serving life sentences with no parole. What's chilling is that this was not a robbery gone wrong. This was a calculated and planned murder by someone he truly loved. While Jeffrey was killed for greed for millions, the next story involves a murder for just $500. Number 1. The deadly scratch-off ticket. Terry Martin and Laurice Hampton had been together for years. They had known each other since they were kids, lived in the same house in Fort Worth, Texas. But all of that fell apart over a scratch-off lottery ticket. One Saturday morning in 2015, Terry won $500 on a scratcher. Laurice expected that he would share it with her, but he refused. So that turned into a fight. Police say the argument got heated and then quite violent. At some point during the fight, Terry pulled out a gun. In the middle of the bedroom that they had shared for years, he shot Laurice multiple times, including a wound to the chest. Then he turned the gun himself. Terry was already dead when officers arrived. Laurice was still alive somehow. Barely holding on, but she managed to call 911 and tell them what happened. That moment says everything. Even with her life slipping away, she used her last strength to report him. She didn't want this to be another unsolved mystery. She told them Terry did it, and then she at the hospital not long after. The medical examiner ruled it a suicide, and the motive was a simple argument over $500. It was a small amount Terry didn't want to share, even with the woman he had lived with for years. Police later said the couple had a very volatile relationship, which might explain the tension, but it doesn't justify the outcome. What's hard to swallow is how something so small, so fixable, became fatal. Maybe it was not the money, but just some resentment that had been simmering for years. But in the end, it took just a single winning ticket to bring it all crashing down. Well, these lottery winners faced shocking twists. Some others didn't need anyone else to ruin things. They did it all on their own. Watch our next video to see 7 lottery winners making the dumbest decisions you've ever seen.